Fantastic. Should we get started? We're 3 minutes in. I think it would be a good time to get rolling. Again, thank you everyone for joining our webinar. This is a joint webinar between Rockhop and HQ4AI. I'd like to start with an agenda, and then we'll go into introductions. So on the menu for today, we'll be jumping into why GenAI and automation and how those things can work together. We'll then get into contracts and understanding the complexities of today's contracts and how AI can help us accelerate that. And then we'll jump into a demo to show you how we've thought of accelerating the contract process with AI and use that as an example for even other contracts that can be accelerated within your business. And then we'll close with a question and answer where you can ask us questions about the webinar itself or anything else related to AI. So our presenters today are Dave Grieve, myself, with Rockhop. We also have Michael Buckman, also from Rockhop, who will be leading our demo today, and Kevin Chaplin from HQ4AI, who will also be going into the depths of how AI and automation can work together. They will each introduce themselves in their section as we go through these slides and the demo. To start off, I'll pass it over to Kevin and talk about why GenAI and automation.
Thanks, Dave, and great to see everyone here today. So yeah, we're going to talk through GenAI and automation and then how they all connect together here. So quick intro of myself. As Dave mentioned, my name is Kevin Chaplin. I'm the co-founder of HQforAI. We focus on AI literacy, so helping to make sure that every single team member understands and uses this amazing new technology. We also deal with AI strategy, helping to make sure that as this continues to grow and deploy at an enterprise scale, that there is a right center of excellence and policies in place to make sure that we're using it safely and correctly. And then finally, in AI engineering. So as you scale from kind of self-service GenAI all the way up into the enterprise level, we can continue to help support that. So excited to be here with everyone. And let's dive in. So off the bat, we hear a lot about this, and I just want to tell everyone here, let's take a deep breath together, okay? GenAI is moving fast. A week goes by, you might take a week-long vacation and come back, and it feels like the entire industry has changed yet again. So it sometimes can very much feel like we're all behind. But I will tell you, I have hundreds of these conversations, and everyone that I meet with has the same kind of feeling, and yet everyone's trying to catch up. So it's okay. We're all learning this tech. We're all learning to use it. We're all learning where to apply it. It's okay, and we're all in a good spot. And by being on webinars like this, we're all here being curious and looking to learn more. And GenAI is not here to take all of our jobs, right? So our mentality is specifically that GenAI is here to help tackle those mundane tasks, to allowing us to focus and elevate that human experience, allowing us to focus on the things that excite us. And then our final mentality, and this is like the fail fast mentality, but truly starting small and then thinking big. So it's okay, and we're going to showcase what we mean by how would you start small, and then how do you kind of scale an idea to be something bigger. We're going to continue to walk through a couple of those examples. So we really believe in these three kind of heavy mantras here as GenAI continues to become more and more pervasive. All right, so common AI concerns. I mentioned one already, right? AI is going to take our jobs, and those who recently came out of school or maybe have kids in school at this point are all thinking that students aren't going to learn anything anymore when you can draft a paper in a few seconds. A number of these, right? I'm not going to read them all off, but what I want to bring out is yes, there's some pessimism in there. There's some things that we can all unfortunately ruminate too much about, but let's talk about the positives that GenAI can and is already bringing to our industry. It is able to cut costs by millions. It's able to be your own personal ideation and innovator and brainstorming machine, right? Like, I always think of it as someone sitting on your shoulder helping you with great ideas. Saving hours, we talked about those mundane tasks, right? Saving hours on admin works, finding risks, ultimate personalization. And all of this combining into reducing employee burnout, which after 5 years of the pandemic and such, I think we all need a nice relief from some of that employee burnout that have been happening. So GenAI has the power to transform how we work, So let's continue to go deeper. So here we have, I'd like to explain a little bit. I'm an engineer and I like to explain how this works because ultimately I trust things more when I understand. So we're going to do a very, very small dive into how it works for those that don't understand the large language models yet. And again, this is a very high level representation, but ultimately it's been trained on all of the internet data, right? All of human knowledge that has been documented before has been absorbed into these and created what we now think of as kind of the internet brain. And so if we look at this example, if we ask Mary had a little blank, right? It has been trained on all the times that this has been typed before. And so in this very rudimentary example, lamb is typically what comes after you'd say Mary had a little, right? So it's going to go ahead and predict that. So if you ask Copilot, Mary had a little blank, it's going to go out and it's going to come out with the next response. But as we're going to show in this next example here, the context matters. So if you say, hey, Copilot, Mary had a little blank, it says lamb. But if you give it context, it can drastically change what your output looks like. So it's always great to consider context. So here in the second example, we say Mary, today's Mary's birthday. Mary had a little blink. It doesn't say lamb anymore. Now it says cake, right? So everything that you type into prompt windows refines your response and gets you a more customized response because it's taking all of that context into play when it's helping to determine what it should do as it's predicting the next word and giving you an answer. But much like a car engine, right? We don't need to know how car engines work to be able to experience the thrill and the power and the value and benefits of owning a car, right? We don't need to know to be able to sit in the driver's seat and get to our destination faster. So much like that, right? GenAI, we don't need to know the inner workings of these models and exactly how they work and how neural nets work. We, as standard business consumers of technology, can leverage the power of these things extremely easily. So let's talk about some concepts that I hear sometimes conflicting in conversations that I have. We talked through traditional AI, all right? So AI has been around. AI has been around for decades at this point. And the AI of a handful of years ago is different from the AI that has been talked about today. So that, yes, they both use the word AI, but what I'm talking about, I'm now calling traditional AI. So think of this as like data science, machine learning. This is where you're taking existing data, right? Very clean, robust data, and using that to create predictions of things like customer churn, financial forecasting, etc. This is different than generative AI, which is a lot of what we're talking about here today. And a lot of when people say, hey, have you tried AI recently? They're talking about generative AI. So just helping to distinguish. And as you have colleagues and such talking about AI, I always ask, tell me more. Which AI are you talking about today? So generative AI is trained on a diverse set of data, as we talked about. It produces new content, new contract terms, first drafts, summaries, those types of examples. So everything we're talking about today is generative AI. It is not traditional AI. Both still have tons of value in our future worlds, but there are different skill sets to use and to comprehend each one of these. The other one here, and this is my own personal breakdown, and I mentioned it earlier, but self-service AI is what I believe every business team member should be using. So remember, like Power BI comes out, right? And it kind of shifted the paradigm of enterprise reporting. We went from SSRS right back in the day. You had a team of 10 who was designing your centralized reports. Now Power BI comes out and it's self-service for everyone, right? Anyone can design their own reports. I view GenAI very much, GenAI Copilot prompt-based tooling in that self-service realm. Everyone can use it. Everyone can learn to prompt. Prompting is just another skill set. It's not an entire role at a company, right? It's a skill set that every person from junior analyst up to CEO should be learning. And that is different from enterprise AI, enterprise Gen AI. Okay, enterprise Gen AI is and we're going to showcase two different versions of this. And so enterprise Gen AI is when you need it to connect, you need it to trigger, you need it to run automatically. And so we're talking things like that we would start coding using Power Apps and Power Automate. So we want it to be able to connect with different systems, or we want it as soon as an email comes in to fire off automatically. These are the different things. So let's continue on this self-service versus enterprise. And you can kind of see a maturity matrix here. So as we kind of grow from left to right, at first, we always say like start simple, everyone, all right? So on the left here would be leveraging Copilot. You can leverage it, it's prompting, you're querying it. Then you start building your own copilots, things that you do often personally. These are things you personally do often. Hey, I write social media copy every morning, right, for our various channels. Okay, well, instead of going and reprompting, explaining who you are and giving it context of your company, you can build a copilot and do that. And as you continue to scale, it goes from kind of this self-service side up to bigger and bigger and bigger and broader. Now you're thinking complete enterprise RAG, right, where you're retrieving documents from across your system. You're pulling data from various data systems, you're processing it, and you're putting back out, but you're using GenAI as one of many pieces in an overall ecosystem. So we're going to show here on this next slide what I mean, again, by self-service versus system automation. So in this, what we're going to show later in our demo is about contracting, right, and how to make contract edits. What we can do here is I could prompt, right? I can get through this. I can fire off. In this example, we have 6 prompts, but I'd go and say, all right, act as a lawyer, review this contract. Here's my standard contract terms. I want you to do this. I want you to think through this. Review the section first, review the section, make this one more favorable, make this section, and you're continuing to adapt and refine through it, but you're going through a lot of prompting. Now, what if I have a larger team, right? What if I do this 50 times a day? What if I want to be able to allow somebody in a different department to leverage the same thought process that myself, who maybe is sitting on the procurement or the legal team, to be able to go through. This is when you go through and go from these kind of this self-service multi-prompting to a larger scale application. So it's always okay. You can start here, right? Prove that GenAI can help the process, help think through it. But eventually we scale up and we go from this multi-prompting into either it could trigger automatically every time an email comes in that has a contract it fires off, or maybe it's just a single 0-shot prompt where we would just drag this document in and the rest of the system now knows what to do and how to process. So we like to think of these two can still accomplish very similar tasks. The difference is the number of people using them, how much time it saves, how strict do we want to be on following kind of my process and my specific thought leadership through this, whether or not we're thinking about an individualized self-service GenAI or something that's much larger in terms of enterprise GenAI. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Dave here, and he's going to talk through the entire workflow of how contracting works.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin, and great slides and great conversation about GenAI and automation. So we're going to jump into understanding the complexities of the contract process. And we're going to use an example of a common MSA that you might share with a customer or a partner that you might be doing business with. But to start, let me start with a quick introduction of myself. So Dave Grieve, I am the CTO and one of the founders here at Rockhop. Rockhop is a boutique Microsoft consulting agency centered on Power Platform and data and analytics. That includes anything around modern apps, automation, AI, Fabric, Power BI. In short, we can help you identify ways to optimize your business to deliver outcomes that have meaningful impact and results. So let's jump into the contract process of today. And really, this can apply to any sort of contract where you have to negotiate terms with a customer or a partner that you're doing business with. And so as you can imagine, you might accept someone else's MSA, or you might share your MSA with them, and there's going to be redlining typically, or it's very rare that I've seen an MSA not come back with some sort of red line, whether that's payment terms or non-disclosure information. Those things will come back and need to be negotiated. And typically that gets passed around to the person who sent it out, and then maybe to your legal team. And there might be a bit of back and forth as you go through this process of negotiating and agreeing on what makes sense for your business and what makes sense for their business. And then finally, once you're done going through that contract negotiation, there's some sort of signature that happens, whether it's a paper pen signature or it's an e-signature. That process still has to take place. So as you can imagine, we've seen the MSA process take days, but we've also seen it take weeks, and that's because the business is overloaded, or there's a lot of negotiating that has to happen within that contract process. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to flip this around a little bit, and we'd like to put AI and automation at the center. So everything that Kevin was really talking about when it comes to how can I optimize this process and where can I make quick decisions, and how can I have AI help me accelerate that, and how can we go through that cycle of making those decisions quickly and either in parallel or in sequence based upon what I want to accomplish. So in our example, someone has received an MSA and they're providing their MSA, and we're inserting it into the system, and the system is looking for key terms that you commonly negotiate within an MSA and looking to see how they might vary from your standard terms within your business. And then AI can be leveraged to rewrite those sections and put them in favor of the business that you're going to be doing business or work with, or put them in your favor in the event that maybe there's a billing term or duration that you're not happy with and you want it to be rewritten in your favor versus theirs. Leverage AI to take care of those administrative tasks. That way you can keep legal at the very end of the process to do a final review, because you've already made some accepted compromises within your business in this whole process. So finally, once it's reviewed and you've updated the terms within that contract with AI and automation, and it's rewritten that document for you, you can then pass it to your legal team for final review, and then off to the customer or partner for e-signature within your business. So let's talk about the benefits of AI and automation in this process, in the contracting process, and really any process that you might try to optimize or automate. So there's a huge time savings, less back and forth, right? We're getting to decisions quickly, and we're not having to involve many different levels of folks within the business to review those decisions, because those have already been agreed to in your compromises within the system. Your speed to agreement, so being able to move the business forward quickly versus waiting several weeks because we're passing it back and forth to different folks within the business. And then finally, the opportunity for increased revenue. The faster you can close an agreement, more likely you have more agreements passing through the business, and you can start work with those customers or partners at a faster pace. And then the last thing I'll end on are the use cases. So I talked about the MSA process, but this can really be applied to any sort of contracting process, even a lease or a loan process. And if you think about the loan process, there's a lot of steps within, from getting or going through credit check to negotiating terms and so on. You can optimize and automate and include AI in a lot of that process to really accelerate and not have to have folks doing manual review and auditing and so on, when the system can take care of that for you. So you can apply really AI and automation to any one of these use cases to help accelerate it and drive value for your business. So I'll stop there. Let's get right to the demo. I'm going to pass it over to Michael Buckman to quickly introduce yourself, and we'll get right into the demo of an MSA use case.
Hey, Dave, we have a question in the chat, and I don't know if we want to wait till the demo to address this, but the question is, what are the inputs that we used for the AI around contracts, i.e. the data that the model used that is contract centric?
Yeah, that's a great question. How about let's get into the demo, and maybe we can get some of those answers as we see the demo, and we can go revisit those questions.
Yeah, William, we'll address this, and if you have further questions, just put them in the chat.
Yep, good idea. Cool, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it, and thanks for going over that whole process and kind of tease me up in terms of what I'm about to demo. So let's get right to it. Well, first I'll introduce myself. I'm Michael Buckman. I'm an architect at Rockhop. I've focused in the Power Platform and AI space over the last few years here. I've been in the Microsoft space now for quite some time now, and really excited about where things are going with Power Platform and AI and Azure. So I am excited to demo this enterprise contract app that I have kind of built and put some of these ideas that we've talked about kind of into action and show you what's possible with GenAI and Power Apps and Power Automate. So let's get started. All right. So I'll briefly kind of walk through the app that I built. This is a Power App. It is a Canvas Power App, so kind of started from scratch here and put in all of these different components inside here. And on the back end of all of this is Power Automate. That's really driving all of the GenAI behind the scenes and kind of formulating the data on the back end so that it can be consumed by the Power App and the end users. So I do want to talk about a few parts here before I first kind of show you what the self-service route would look like, and then how the enterprise automation route kind of transforms that. So we've got our Power App, we have our contracts on the left here, and with each record, we'll kind of look at what AI did to break down those contracts and how we can tweak those things. But one thing that I do want to point out here is we have added a co-pilot to this Power App, which is a feature of Power Apps. I have built a custom co-pilot on the back end here to take in the documents that I've added to the contracts. And we can ask some questions against these. So this would kind of be the self-service route that I wanted to show off first. And kind of show what's happening on the back end with the enterprise app and automation and how it's kind of expediting this process for users. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it, can you please extract the limitation of liability section in the document MSA 10? Now, MSA 10 is the MSA that I've attached to this first Contoso record. It has extracted this section here. So done exactly what I wanted, and it gives me kind of it gives it context in terms of what I'm about to ask it. So I would like it to now rewrite this section to make it less favorable for me, and also include what's changed in terms of what it's rewritten. So while it works on that, okay, so it has first told me what the original section included, and then it has given me the rewritten section. So it gives me this rewritten text, and then it tells me what changes it made. So it reduced the period for calculating direct damages from 18 months to 6 months, so made it less favorable for myself. Now I'm going to do the exact opposite and say, okay, can you actually make this more favorable for me, and include what's changed? So to do the exact same thing and just kind of flip the script here and let me know what the changes it made. So it's kind of spit out here the updated section here. It's rewritten this just like it did for the less favorable, and then it includes what it's changed in the rewritten section. So I wanted to do this first just so that you could see kind of what the manual process looks like for this, what a user can come in and do to allow Copilot to kind of help rewrite some of these sections and make it more favorable or less favorable, or you can definitely tweak the wording there to make it more descriptive or more specific in terms of what you want to do with these contracts. And again, I'm kind of doing MSAs here, but it could be any sort of contract that you want to feed in here, or any document really that you're looking to kind of tweak sections or anything like that, or use GenAI with. So now that we've seen the manual process, I have kind of built on the back end here a way to automate all of these prompts with a contract, and I've built out terms to look for within a contract so that it will go in there and search for these sections, and we can kind of tweak those sections to make them less favorable or more favorable, which we'll see in a second. And it runs that through a Power Automate flow and it will really just feed it all of these prompts and give me all of the data much faster than I would be able to insert them into the prompts. So I have one that I've already done, just so you can see the output of this, because it does take a second for it to run through that flow and go through all of the different prompts, which I'm going to kick off right now, just so that it can run while I go over the one that I've already done. So while that's running in the background, we can see the finished product there. Let's review this one that I've already done. We have a contract that I've uploaded to this record. So I have my MSA 10. That was the one we were just referring to inside of the Copilot. We've got a status. It's already been AI reviewed. And I had 3 terms that I was looking for within that contract: the non-solicitation section, limitation of liabilities, and invoicing and payment. So I'm looking for those 3 sections so that I can see exactly what's in those sections, and if I need to make them less or more favorable in each of those sections. I've also included some what we'd call kind of, I guess not old AI, but machine learning. So it will actually run this through AI Builder behind the scenes as well, and it will pull out the certain terms, certain numbers within those sections as well. So in this one, I looked for the non-solicitation period, and it pulled out the 12-month period there for this, which you can see here in the original text. So if I drop this down, we can see what the original text is here that it pulled out of the contract that I've uploaded. I can also drag this over to be less favorable. And what this has done behind the scenes when I did the AI review of this, it prompted it exactly what I did in the Copilot before, prompted this, pulled out the rewritten section, and it listed out the differences that it added to this rewritten section to make it less favorable. And if I were to drag this over to more, it would do the exact opposite. And it rewrote the section and pulled out the differences. Again, we're kind of saving those to the record so that you can easily toggle between less and more favorable, and go to the original text as well to see what it actually looked like in the beginning. So I'm going to save this as more favorable, and I will also do that for each of these. So again, you can see if I drag it to less, we can see the updated text and the differences. If I drag it to more, again, same thing. I'm just going to make it more for all of these. So let's do that. I just want to show you the differences here and save. So we've updated these all to more, all these different terms. I'm going to leave the numbers as is, and then I'm going to go ahead and just do a summarize of this. And then after we get done with this, we can go back and see how it's doing with the HQ4AI contract. So if I click summarize and draft, I'm going to go ahead and submit this to a flow to do some summarizing of the items that I picked. So we can see the contract negotiation summary here, and it also sent an email, which I'll show in a second. It looks like it just arrived in my inbox, but first we get the prompt of, we can see each section. The non-solicitation, we have chosen to make this section more Rockhop favored, and we can see the revised section language and the key differences. It's going to look very similar to what we had in the app, so it'll have the rewritten section, the differences, and then again, it'll list out all the ones that we changed. So we made this more Rockhop favored as well. And the invoicing payments, we made more Rockhop favored as well. Now, if I pull up this email that just arrived in my inbox, we can see that it actually rewrote the contract. So it replaced those sections, and I'll show that in a second, with the more favored Rockhop language in that contract. It also gives you the exact same kind of breakdown that it did within the app. So if I open up this document, and I actually have the original here too, so you can kind of compare. Let's go to the I don't want to go through contracts with you on this call because I'm sure I would bore everybody, but I'll at least grab one section here, the invoicing and payment. So we can see, and I can kind of compare this. I'm trying to see if I can make this so you can see both of them here. If we go scroll up, we can see that the rate has been changed to 2% here, and you can see 2% is in this section as well. And then in the original, if Teams would get out of the way here, there we go. If we go to invoicing and payment, that was 1.5% before, and that was the main difference that it stated in the app was the increase in interest rate. So I just wanted to point that out. So we kind of get a summary email here. We get the document rewritten for us. And that can be sent internally. That could even expedite the process, and you could send that to your customer and kind of summarize. Again, it can be in different words or a different summary to make it more consumable for your customer. But that can also help expedite this contract process. Just by doing a few clicks within an app and then summarizing and sending that off to the customer or whoever it is internally that you need to send that off to. Now let's go ahead and see. Okay, so HQ for AI contract is also done now. We can see what it did here. So we've got the limitation of liability section. If I go less, it actually gave me the original here and the rewritten, a little more broken down than it did before, which is kind of nice. And then the changes that were made. And then if I go more, very similar, we get the original rewritten and the changes made. And then it'll look very similar in these, I'm guessing, as well. Yep, so we get a rewritten section. It actually changed the location of where it's putting these differences, but that's okay. And we have the original and rewritten section here. So, so again, it's kind of doing all of this on its own in the back end. I'm feeding it the prompts. It's the exact prompts that I showed you in the Copilot kind of at the beginning of this demo. So I'm automating, asking these questions on each of these sections. And I could list out many more sections in the document that I'm looking for. And if it can find it, it will pull those out of the contract and do exactly as you see here, give me the less and more favored language in for that section. And I think that's all I've got for in terms of the demo. I see, I'm just looking through if we have any questions here.
Camera went off, but there's a question. Keith Evans is asking, what does it look like to train the model to identify sections, more versus less favorable, et cetera? How long did that take?
Yeah, so it actually, there was no real training involved. So it's using a GPT engine on the background. I'm feeding them just as I did with the Copilot, which is also using a GPT engine. And it's just like you would with any GPT online that you use. I'm feeding it kind of the document as context. I'm telling it what the section is that I want to refer to, and then kind of tweaking the language, playing around with the language to see if I get the kind of correct response that I'm looking for, you know, pulling out the language or that specific section, and then let's make this less favorable. I probably could have added more context to say, hey, act as a lawyer, do this, and we can make these prompts as specific as we want and give it as much context as we want to try and get that response that we're looking for and play around with that. And as you keep using this and prompting it and feeding it through the automation, they start to end up looking very, very similar in terms of the format and getting out kind of exactly what you're looking for in those sections. Does that answer your question? Looks like Keith. Yeah, there we go.
Yes,
Perfect.
he said yes.
And sorry about the camera. The Teams bar was in my tabs and accidentally clicked the camera there.
That Teams bar, always getting in the way. All right, let me bring the slides back up. Well, Michael, thank you for the demo. It was a great demo and a great example of how we can leverage AI and automation to accelerate the contract review process.
Yeah, definitely.
I am trying to bring the slides up. I don't know what's happening here. Let me go right to the deck here.
We see them.
Oh, you do? Oh,
Yeah, we're on slide 21.
I do not see them. Let me stop and do that again here. Excellent. Okay, perfect. Great. Well, that leads us to our Q&A. Are there any other questions that you would like to ask of Kevin here on the process and how we demystify and leverage AI to our advantage, or Michael on the demo and how we built the contract and review process? Are there more in the Q&A here? All right, here's another question here. Are there any concerns or best practices around security, such as putting contract terms in a GPT?
So Copilot does not train off your information and your data. And so I would say there is no concern from my end about putting those types of contract terms in a GPT from that aspect. I think the only concerns that I would have is because you're using a generative AI technology to now craft a finalized document, right? And these are legal documents. We would highly recommend that you still have a human in the loop at the end of this process. So when that finalized contract is created, you would want someone who is approved to review contracts to give it kind of their final blessing. So it's a little bit. So there's two things that you should always worry about, right? It's like, is my data secure in this in these Microsoft products? They are. And then the second piece is, how do we make sure that this is 100% accurate in what we wanted it to do? So this is why in that email that comes out that Michael was showing us, right, it shows those changes, and then you can go into the document and kind of do that quick diff. And I would gauge that it will be right a majority of the time, but that doesn't mean that you can start just kind of clicking that final accept button. You still do want to review. Hopefully, though, that person who's doing that final review understands the benefit that has been there, because instead of going and spending an hour or more, right, rethinking and drafting these things, now they're doing a kind of a quick pass to make sure that the legalese that has been drafted is still accurate to what they wanted.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Dennis, does that help?
And as this tech continues to mature, I feel like things like hallucinations will continue to be reduced. They've already come a very far way in the past year. So that concern to need that human in the loop down the road, I'd say will potentially down the road will potentially alleviate that concern. But for now, I would definitely, for something of this caliber, I would definitely have a human always in the loop at this point.
Excellent. All right, another question. How does AI recognize changes the client has made when receiving to make suggestions of alternative clauses?
So I think in this, right, as this gets built out from kind of this initial demo into a more robust system that you start to, and then you feed that back in, it would still have the context of the original file, the tweaks that you made, and then now their red lines back to you, and it would be able to consolidate all of that, and then you'd go through and kind of, hey, do we approve their changes? Do we not? Do we need to recompromise, or do we push back and just reject their changes? I view that as that becomes this I feel like this workflow that we showed is like the very nice, like happy path where everything just magically goes back and we're down to a final contract. Obviously, Matthew, you understand the contracting process well. It never goes quite that easily. And so what I would do is we would take that and feed that back in, and that would basically continue the process while still having all of the context from that we already had, like I said, from those previous 2 documents to help to recommend changes or help to say, actually, the way they reworded it is still favorable enough that we as a company are okay with, and then it would recommend you just to accept the change.
Yeah, there's an alternative approach to this as well. We can get away from email and we can deliver an online experience. So a website that the partner or customer goes to see what changes you're making or suggesting, and whether they can accept them or provide feedback on that in that experience. So really providing an end-to-end digital experience so that you have an audit path so that they can download it if they want to and review it with their team and re-upload it again, and the system itself extracting those changes. So there is a path here that we can really simplify and automate the experience, but also capture all of that feedback quite easily. All right, another question. Can we run analysis on multiple contracts at the same time? For example, if you want to understand if a particular provision exists in a group of contracts.
Yeah, I think the answer would be yes there. So you could pool documents together. It doesn't, I in my demo, I call out a single document just because I was trying to be pretty specific in terms of the contract I was working with, but you could certainly have a group of documents in a folder or whatever it may be that you're looking at, and kind of tell Copilot to look throughout those contracts for that particular section.
Another thought to pile on with that for James's question would be, we were talking about how do you train, right, these bots to work and to know what we want, right? So you'd have your default MSA behind the scenes to say, this is how I want, these are the favorable conditions that we're looking for. And then based on the document that we're starting with, right, this is how it's kind of giving you the delta. But now what you could also do as part of a knowledge file that's stored in the background is not just your happy path, like your perfect MSA, right, that the lawyer has drafted. What you could also start doing is storing client MSAs that have now been executed on. So what you're starting to do is now you're giving it not just your perfect MSA, but you're giving it those kind of contracts that you've now agreed to. And over time, this application will then get more robust with its recommendations to be able to recommend things that are within the bounds, right? So it's not going to go very far in each way. It's going to kind of say, well, we typically agree to between these 2 numbers. So I feel like, right, all of our lawyers are willing to budge a little bit, but they are not going to go too far one way or another. So by uploading all of those as past knowledge files too, that will just continue to make this system more and more robust. So it's not always just robotically comparing against our standard MSA, but it's now continuing to kind of have that feedback loop and learn what we're okay with, right? Maybe we're okay on the non-solicitation agreement and really being negotiable on that, right? And maybe we're not. And by uploading those past contracts, it will continue to kind of refine and make this a much more personalized experience. Great question, James.
Another question here. Have you integrated this type of Microsoft Copilot solution with existing document management systems? What are the challenges?
Good. Who's going to answer that? So I view this, right, and once you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, you can easily connect to SharePoint and OneDrive. So you could use those as, again, that knowledge management that you're grabbing those from. What I would expect here, I'm looking at this more of like, do you want it to trigger automatically? So when we're thinking about the automation that can happen, do you want this when it's coming into a specific email? Maybe you have like a legal email address, and so you're watching, is it a trigger where you want this to automatically happen? So by the time the lawyer gets to it, this review's been done. it's more of that. So I'd say this can easily tie into that ecosystem, but I guess my challenge would be what and why are we tying into that ecosystem? And is it to help automation and to create the trigger, or is it to make it easier on the output side so that it can land in a larger document management system, and then maybe you can share that live doc with customer as what Dave was doing before. So instead of living in email, at least sharing a live document link. So as folks redline and edit, we're not emailing back and forth as much as we're now all at least editing the same document. So I'd see those as some of the benefits to doing that.
Yeah, and we've seen other areas in which Copilot can really benefit a document management system, and really centered around knowledge management and being able to ensure that you're sharing the knowledge of your business through these documents with the rest of your employees in the organization, so that they can ask questions and accelerate their work based upon the way that business does work with their customers and so on. So a lot of opportunity there, a lot of different use cases, pretty endless in that sense. All right, any other questions? Good. Then we'll move on to, did another question come in? Where did it go?
It's in the chat.
Oh, there it is. How well does this integrate with Word? If AI makes contract term more favorable, can the changes of the original item show in Word in a redline format, or is the user only able to view summaries where the whole new provision is presented? In our example, as you saw, we actually summarize it in an email and as an output, and we can even maintain an audit trail within the system. And this goes back to the whole digital experience. We output it to a Word document, of course, and that's based upon a Word template within your business. But to actually have it show up as a red line, I would imagine that's possible, Michael. I'd have to get pretty creative there when it comes to redlining content, but it's certainly possible.
I think it's possible, but yeah, I think it takes a couple hops, or maybe that's just a future connection into Word, where it allows you to do kind of that editing outside of Word and still making it appear as if it's a standard red line.
Yeah, I really try to modernize the process is the path that we're trying to take it, and seeing if we can move to a more digital experience if possible. But I could see this being doable in a redline experience as well.
Definitely a good question, Scott.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll move on to the next slide here. So we have a AI workshop that we would like to share with all of you. It is a partnership of HQ4AI as well as Rockhop, where we come together to help demystify AI for your business. So we're getting into common fears, misconceptions, and really showcasing use cases around GenAI chatbots. Then we'll get into use case ideation. So think of this as how can we leverage GenAI, Copilot, and so on for your business. We're really trying to uncover where there may be opportunities, identify the value that it would drive, and then prioritizing them. So really creating that AI use case roadmap for your organization. And then in that same workshop, we're taking one of those use cases and creating a prototype in a couple of days. And we're leveraging technologies like Power Automate, Copilot, Fabric, Power Apps, and so on to build out that use case to really showcase what's possible within your organization. And then we're launching it so that we can start to use it and learn from it within your business. And then we're, of course, documenting any lessons learned to take forward on the next use cases for your business. This workshop is typically 1 to 2 weeks. We can do it all in 1 week, but it's really about getting everyone together and organizing those events. So we see it happening typically over a 2-week period. Costs about $10,000, and there are some funding opportunities with Microsoft depending upon if your business qualifies for them. And if you're interested, you can click on the screen, click here to register in the top right. If not, we'll also share a link within the chat window, and of course after the webinar itself. Looks like we have a poll up. Thank you page for if you're interested now, please let us know. Otherwise, you can always click on the website and sign up, and we'll get in touch and work through the details on how we can shape this for your business.
Yeah, and please, we're happy just to to talk through your specific use cases or spend a little additional time talking through any questions you have about what we presented today. So if you would like us to reach out, just click yes in the window and we'll schedule some additional time.
Excellent. Well, we're still going to be here for a couple more minutes, but I want to thank you all for your time today, and I hope you found this webinar useful. We're excited about AI, and we're excited to learn more about how we can help drive AI within your business to achieve some outcomes.